Well, hi there, food friends. It's Kevin, and welcome to Cavalcade of Food. And as you might have surmised, we are here in the Cavalcade Cookbook Library. But today, we're not looking at traditional cookbooks as we normally do. We're looking at recipe books for cocktails. That's right. So, we're going to focus on recipes for um, liquid enchantments, we might say. And I have a sampling here of books that we will look at together, some of them quite old, some of them not so old, but books that help people learn about the various liquors and mixers and glasses to use and help people be good bartenders. And these books were written not for those who wanted to go into the profession of being a bartender, but for those who entertained at home and like to offer their guests drinks. Raise your hand if you are a certain age, where you remember going over people's homes, or maybe even in your own home, and in the basement of the home was a bar. Certainly after World War II into the 50s and 60s, a lot of people had bars built in their basement. I remember my grandparents, they had a beautiful bar. It even had a sink, running water. I mean, it was a real deal. And because, you know what, entertaining at home, first of all, was just part of a way of life for so many people. And particularly as people moved out into the suburbs, having a bar in the basement, often tile floor, you'd have a record player down there, and grown-ups would have parties, and people would come over and dance and eat and drink, and you had a bar where you mixed up cocktails. So these books were all really written with that in mind, the art of entertaining. And I've got books just on entertaining and doing parties, which we'll do in the future, because those are just so interesting and fascinating as well, how people who maybe never threw a party before, the suggestions that were given to help them throw successful parties that went beyond just drinks and food and things like that, but how to keep your guests engaged, and how to serve and how to introduce people and all that stuff. So that's a whole other thing. Today we are going to be talking about mixing drinks, tending bar, and the recipes that take us there. The trend, or one of the trends right now, is you hear the word craft cocktails. Well, you know what? Everything old is new again, and Manhattans and Old Fashions, these are cocktails that have been around forever. They fell out of favor for a while, and now they're back in style. And so younger people who didn't grow up with these drinks had to learn how to make them. But believe me, all that stuff was around, certainly in these days, and we will take a look together at some of these books on mixing and bartending. Okay, friends, let's look at a few of these books together. Now, here's one that I've used many times. This is the Burke's Complete Cocktail and Drinking Recipe Book. I have to be careful with this because it's almost really falling apart. And it was authored by Harmon Bernie Burke, also known as Barney Burke, and it includes with recipes for food bits for the cocktail hour. Notice the publication date, 1934. So what's interesting about this book is it was published in January of 34. Prohibition was repealed in December of 33. So, you know, those years during Prohibition, certainly not that people didn't drink, because they did, but there was such a, dare I use the word, thirst for the reestablishment of cocktail culture. And this was a book that really helped bring back cocktails in a new way. He includes on the inside the world's 14 most famous cocktails. Martini. The top 5 are Martini, Manhattan, the Bronx cocktail, which you hardly ever hear about anymore, old-fashioned whiskey cocktail, and the sidecar. So this is a great book. I don't know if these were reprinted. They're kind of hard to find, but he's really got a lot of great recipes. And this book, like so many cocktail books, are sort of organized by the liquor that is used. So it starts with mixing and serving, talks about what glasses to use, strainers, shakers. It gives a whole list here of all the different cocktail glasses to use. And, you know, for those of us who just used old jelly jars, which is certainly okay, but there are proper ways to serve cocktails. And it starts with gin drinks, because during Prohibition, gin was one of the easier alcohols to make, and so gin was very popular. And then it goes to whiskey and brandy drinks and things like this. But, you know, just a year earlier, a book like this could not have been published because it was Prohibition. All right, now I'm going to look at some books here, if we can get them all in the shot. These are different iterations of the same book, different edition. The Standard Bartender's Guide, and for my money, this is still one of the best references, and it was written by someone named Patrick Gavin Duffy. Doesn't get much more Irish than that, does it? But the different editions kind of vary in terms of how they are organized, but Mr. Duffy was not only a bartender, but a researcher of cocktails. I'll just read you from the preface of the book. Most of the following extensive and carefully selected list of cocktails have been served over first-class bars in the United States, South America, Canada, and Europe since our Civil War. There are, however, a considerable number which were created during the period of Prohibition, 1917 to 1933, and some of these are obviously of irresponsible origin. So he talks about how during Prohibition there were drinks that really were not great, that were concocted because there was just such a limited access to different liquors. But here it says the cocktails are arranged primarily according to basic ingredient, and in mixing cocktails, I strongly recommend the use of the old bar glass with metal top and strainer. The more modern cocktail shaker with detachable metal top is not, in my opinion, as good, as it is more difficult to keep clean. So anyways, he has some notations in here, And, you know, funny, I go through these books and look at this. As a bookmark, someone put this in here, how to make a canasta. Canasta cocktail, a delightful new drink with a Latin accent. Try it now. Here it is. Here's the recipe. Southern Comfort, juice of lime or lemon, cracked ice. This was probably, of course, it's a recipe printed by Southern Comfort. But, you know, at the time that this book was published, canasta was all the rage. So these are available in paperback, and I mean these are quite old. These are from the 50s. You can see how the pages have yellowed over the years, but really interesting. Here, this is a later edition, revised and enlarged by James Beard, and of course I think many of us know who he was, one of America's preeminent cooks and food critics. But these are all books by Patrick Gavin Guffey. Here is a hardcover official mixer's manual. And this one, what's the copyright date? Original copyright date was 1934. This was printed in 1940. So, but what I love about this particular volume, if I can get to it quickly, is he shows us the glassware. These are the different cocktail glasses. And, you know, we say, who knew there were so many? But you may recognize some of these shapes of these glasses, and he identifies them here. Really cool. Patrick Gavin Duffy. And then we have, here's another paperback. This one is simply The Art of Mixing Drinks. And they're all in here, folks. Everything that you could imagine, but with an emphasis on the tools to have at the bar. This one has a chapter on drinks of famous people. Art Linkletter Papaya Cocktail. Benny Goodman's Admiral Cocktail. Sinclair Lewis's Aerosmith Punch. These are names that, of course, go to the period that this was written. A lot of younger people wouldn't know who these folks are, but that's sort of fun. Here's something that slipped out. Don't know. Oh, yeah. This is a. Look at this. Here is a placemat. A few cocktail suggestions. The Gallery Restaurant and Bar. Not sure. Oh, St. Ignace, Michigan. So right here, St. Ignace, by the way, for those of you not familiar with the wonderful and beautiful state of Michigan, is just at the southern tip of the Upper Peninsula. So we have a bridge that connects the Lower and Upper Peninsula called the Mackinac Bridge. And Mackinac City is on the southern point of the bridge, and St. Ignace is on the northern part. I don't know if this restaurant is still there, but anyways, cocktails and all the standards, certainly. Whiskey sour, martini, white Russian, Bahama Mama, screwdriver, Manhattan, tequila sunrise, strawberry daiquiri, brandy Alexander. Boy, that placemat would get you pretty far. Then look at this book. This is called A Guide to Pink Elephants. So I thought that was kind of cute. And this is tabbed. And this is a quick little drink. Brandies, cordials, gin drinks, party drinks and canapes, rum, scotch, whiskey, vodka, and wines. You know, now wine is just so prevalent and, of course, everywhere. Wine from all over the world, but there was a time when wine drinking was not that in general American culture, it's not that we didn't drink wine. You didn't have whole stores with thousands of different bottles of wine. It was much more limited. But here you can even see sort of some of the old clarets and sauternes and burgundies wines. Anyways, Guide to Pink Elephants. Then, how we have a lot of cookbooks that were published by women's magazines like McCall's and, you know, Better Homes and Gardens, Good Housekeeping, and the like. Here's one, the cover's torn. I'll turn it this way. This is Esquire Magazine's Handbook for Hosts, the Modern Guide to Hospitality at Home. And this book I love. Copyright date we will verify here. Yeah, graphics are great in here. 1949. But there are lots of, here's a whole chapter on punches, but there are lots and lots of drink recipes in here from Esquire and things that you need to have a successful party, including some recipes for food. Then we have a little book here called Here's How by Stouffer's. Now, did you have a Stouffer's restaurant in your area? We certainly did here in Detroit. We had one downtown, and there was one out in the suburbs, as I recall, as well. And Stouffer's was a wonderful place and a real treat to go. Those restaurants don't exist anymore, and the only remnant left of Stouffer's really are these frozen foods like mac and cheese and stuff like that, which, by the way, taste nothing like what they served in the restaurant. Here's a photo of the Chicago Stouffer's. Here's a photo of the Cleveland Stouffer's. And it is really a cocktail book. You know, Stouffer's was sort of a place you went. It was considered somewhat elegant. Look at that. Love the photos here. And Apricot Delight. Yes, please. Alexander Brandy Cocktail. Acapulco Cocktail. Yeah. So, and Stouffer's also shows you, you know, handy tools to have in the bar. Again, this was really about entertaining. And then here's another one. Here's How. Look at this one. Has a wooden, this is a wooden painted cover that's bound with a little leather strap. Here's How. And it's got a little kind of opaque plastine cover. Here's How. Mixed Drinks. W.C. Whitefield. Decorated by Tad Shell. Published at Asheville, North Carolina. Copyright date 1941. And again, these are, here's a bunch of punches. Again, I know, check out my punch bowl video if punches interest you, but there is just all kinds of wonderful recipes for punches and cocktails and just fun. Ooh, an egg sour. Boy, that sounds interesting. Of course, it has an egg in it. Yeah, why wouldn't it? Applejack sour. So there's just juleps and sours and all kinds of other stuff. And then here's one that is fairly modern. This is the 75th anniversary edition, and this is a book that's still in print, and one that I like, Mr. Boston Bartender's Guide. And of course, this is a modern book, and it has a lot of updated cocktails but it also has all the classics. And it starts with brandy, and it goes all the way through, rum, tequila. Some of the older books don't have tequila recipes in it because tequila wasn't mainstream. Not that it wasn't around, it just wasn't something that a lot of people drank. Cordials and liqueurs, love that. Those are fun drinks. Frozen drinks, hot drinks, eggnogs and punches, wine and beer, non-alcoholic drinks. So this is a good one. I recommend this. If you're just sort of getting into bartending and entertaining, you might want to try it. So there's just a look at some of the good old cocktail recipe books here in the Cavalcade Library. So I hope you enjoyed this little look at just a sampling of wonderful cocktail books. They're out there, as you rummage around, if you go to used bookstores or rummage sales and that. I mean, cocktail culture was a real thing here in the United States and actually all over. But, the idea of sort of having these sophisticated home parties was something that a lot of people really aspired to do. And we didn't have the internet back then, so where did you get the knowledge? Where did you get the information of how to make all these different drinks and figuring out what you were going to need to have behind the bar? You got a book. You got a book. And I don't know if the library had all these kind of books, but you could certainly get these books at your local bookstore, drugstore, wherever. This was 35 cents, okay, which, adjust for inflation, but it wasn't an expense. And the knowledge from Mr. Duffy contained in this book was pretty remarkable. So you could make a small investment and really impress folks with your working knowledge of the bar. So thank you for watching. It means a lot to me that you do watch and you spend some time with me each week. I do really, really appreciate it. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please do so. That is immensely helpful to me if you would subscribe. And feel free to share this video and give it a like. That also helps. I hope everybody is well. I invite you to check out my website, which is cavalcadefood.com. And while you're there, you can check out my other YouTube channel, which is called Always Analog. And if you're so inclined and like to hear great mid-century music, you can tune in and connect through my website to my Saturday morning radio program called the Cavalcade Radio Hour. But most of all, thank you again for watching. I hope everyone is well and having a wonderful autumn. It's beautiful here in Michigan, and I hope it is where you are as well. Until next time, take care, everybody, and we'll see you soon back here on Cavalcade of Food. Bye for now.